Senate Energy, Utilities, Environment, and Climate Committee will please come to order. It's Wednesday, February 25th, 2026. It's around 12:30 p.m. We're in the Minnesota Senate Building, room 1150, and a quorum is present. Welcome, everyone. On today's agenda, we are going to start with the Public Utilities Commission. I have Ms. Bergman and Mr. Bull. If you could please come forward. Welcome to both of you. Special welcome, Ms. Bergman. It's good to see you here. We do some cool stuff in this committee. I know you're enjoying work at the PUC. Thank you for taking some time to testify. Mr. Bull, a pleasure as always. I don't know if you have an order to how you want to present, but you have the floor. Fire away.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Chair Frentz and Senators. My name is Sasha Bergman, and I'm the Executive Secretary at the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission. I'm relatively new to my position, having joined just a couple of months ago. And I'm joined here by my colleague, Mike, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mike Bull. I'm the Deputy Executive Secretary of the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission. It's great to see all of you again.
Yeah, we're very pleased to be here with you today. We've got a few slides to share with you today. I'll start the presentation with an overview of the PUC and what we do, and then Mr. Bull will cover the bulk of the presentation, talking about affordability, and then providing a number of legislative updates to you all on laws that have been passed in recent years. So starting with an overview, the Public Utilities Commission is Minnesota's oldest regulatory body. The legislature created the commission in the 1870s, and at that point in time, it was to oversee and regulate services that are essential to the economic well-being of Minnesotans, and back then it was railroads and warehouses. But today the mission of the PUC is to improve the lives of all Minnesotans by ensuring access to safe, reliable, and sustainable electric, gas, natural gas, and landline telephone services at just and reasonable rates. The decisions of the agency impact the lives of Minnesotans in a variety of ways, whether that is the rates that are charged by for-profit utilities, the quality of electric, natural gas, or landline telephone services, or the quality of life for those who live nearby energy generation and transmission, just to name a few. The Commission recognizes the importance of the decisions that it makes, and it does so in adherence to the general and specific directives enacted by the legislature in Minnesota statutes, and you can see a number of the statutes impacting or related to the PUC on the slide in front of you. The PUC is a unique agency in state government with statutory authorities that are quasi-judicial, quasi-legislative, and administrative in nature. Minnesota statutes vest the power of the agency in 5 commissioners who are appointed by the governor and approved by the Senate. The commission is an independent agency and not a member of the governor's cabinet. So the governor selects the commission's chair, whose term is concurrent with that of the governor. The chair functions as the principal executive officer of the agency and has statutory authority to preside over the commission's meetings and, upon approval, give direction to staff through the executive secretary. Additionally, statutes give the administrative authority of the agency to an executive secretary. Currently, the PUC is led by Chair Katie Sieben, and we also have Vice Chair Commissioner Joe Sullivan, Commissioner Weekwan Ham, Commissioner Audrey Partridge, and Commissioner John Tuma. The commissioners serve 6-year staggered terms, and no more than 3 commissioners can be of the same political party. So we often refer to the regulatory compact, which is the foundational relationship and the structure established in statute between the utilities, their customers, and the regulator, which is the PUC, in exchange for an exclusive right to serve customers in a defined service territory for electric utilities or a service area for gas utilities, as well as an opportunity to recover costs and earn a reasonable rate of return. Our utilities must provide safe and reliable service to all customers at just and reasonable rates, in addition to a host of other public interest requirements. The PUC's authority over utilities is primarily limited to for-profit companies that are owned by investors. The PUC does not regulate most aspects of municipal utilities or electric cooperative associations, but it can mediate or investigate complaints about them and advise on their long-term plans. Electric cooperative associations, however, may elect to be regulated by the PUC, and currently there is one, a cooperative electric association, Dakota Electric, in addition to 8 investor-owned electric and natural gas utilities that are regulated by the PUC. This slide highlights a couple of the primary areas of regulation for the PUC, and then we'll have a couple more on the following slide. The PUC's regulatory authority over electric and natural gas utilities includes setting utility standards and rates for investor-owned utilities. And the PUC also enforces service quality standards. This means that we hold the utilities accountable for the reliability and safety. Additionally, while the telecommunications landscape has changed significantly, the PUC maintains jurisdiction over landline telephone service to ensure that this critical link remains stable and accessible. And further, perhaps the Public Utilities Commission's most forward-looking role is overseeing comprehensive energy system planning. We don't just react to current needs, we're looking out 15 and 20 years ahead to help direct how the grid will evolve. This happens along 3 primary pillars: generation planning, so we review integrated resource plans to select the best mix of energy resources, balancing affordability and reliability with the state carbon reduction and energy efficiency goals designated by all of you as legislators. In transmission and distribution, we oversee the necessary investments in the wires side of the business. So this ensures that the physical infrastructure from high voltage transmission lines to local meters at your home are modernized and capable of handling new energy demands. And then in the way of natural gas planning, we oversee resource planning for gas utilities to ensure a safe and efficient supply as we navigate the transition to a cleaner energy future. The PUC also reviews requests by utilities and non-utility entities that want to build large energy infrastructure projects like high voltage transmission lines, power plants, solar farms, wind farms, storage facilities, and pipelines. And lastly, I'd mentioned the Commission actively participates in the Mid-Continent Independent System Operator, also known as MISO, as well as the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission proceedings as an individual member and as an organization, as a part of the organization of MISO states and the Southwest Power Pool, really to protect and promote state interests and help try to influence regional transmission planning. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Bull.
Thanks, Sasha.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bull.
Great. And just for the record, if Will Seifert is listening, excuse me, I see, I need to get closer to the mic, that Sasha is a huge upgrade. So I'll pay for that later, but happy to say
Mr.
so.
Bull, glad to report
Mr.
that.
Chair,
Yes. Senator Matthews.
I'd like to request a roll call on that.
Roll call requested, roll call granted. When Sasha called and said that she would make this change, I thought it was a very positive development, although that was no reflection on Will, but it's cool, and thank you.
Very good.
Now, Mr. Bull, if you're quite ready,
I am quite
present your
ready.
testimony.
So thank you, Mr. Chair. We wanted to spend a little time with you. There was a lot of conversation about affordability of utility service, and we wanted to sort of cover how we are thinking and approaching affordability at the Commission. But before I get there, I want to reiterate just how special and unique an agency the Commission is. As Sasha covered, I worked at the Commission earlier in my career in a similar role to the one I'm in now, and then went off to work for a number of utilities, Xcel, Minnesota Power, the co-ops, a number of clean energy organizations, Center for Energy and Environment, Clean Grid Alliance, and was also in leadership at the Department of Commerce for a time. But I was thrilled at the opportunity to come back to the Commission to finish out my career. You know, the critical thing I want you to know about the Commission is that you may not always agree with the decision that the Commission makes or the decision that you hope for, but you can be confident in the integrity of the decision, that it's well considered, based solely on the record and the statutes that you've all passed. In my experience, over this 30-year career, the Commission has consistently been one of the best utility commissions in the country, and we're well recognized for that. Commercial over, now to the regularly scheduled portion of my presentation. Affordability is always a priority for the commission. With regard to the utilities that we rate regulate, it's no surprise to any of you that costs are going up. We see them all the time. Many of the factors driving these cost increases, frankly, are outside the control of the commission or the utilities we oversee. This is supply chain and wage inflation, increased wholesale commodity costs. You've heard about the loss of federal tax incentives and credits. Federal DOE decisions to extend operation of what are considered uneconomic coal plants, infrastructure that's end of life and needs to be replaced, and then the need to meet increasing energy demands of utility customers. So all of those things in that context is how we're approaching affordability with the things that we do have control over. Thank you, Sasha. Affordability begins long before any of those costs or the costs that we have oversight over are included in customer bills. For us, affordability starts big picture with the resource planning proceedings and dockets that Sasha mentioned. We're looking at size, type, timing of resource investments, working with analysts at the Department of Commerce and multiple interveners. We scrutinize utility IRPs to determine the optimal portfolio of utility investments needed to meet customer demand compared with numerous alternatives. Cost, reliability, compliance with state law are the focus of our review at this stage. Rate cases are the critical opportunity for the commission to police utility costs before they get charged to a customer. All the various and myriad costs of running a utility and providing service to customers, this is capital, operations, maintenance, are comprehensively and painstakingly reviewed by the commission through excellent work by our technical analysts and those at the Department of Commerce, the Residential Utility Division at the OAG, and multiple and growing number of interveners. Through that work, utility rate cases are whittled down to the bare minimum necessary to operate the utility and provide reliable service to customers. Here are some examples of that affordability work in action. These are decisions the commission have made in proceedings to reduce costs to utility customers. Reduced utility rate requests by well over $1 billion over the past few years. These include rate reductions to the requests by Xcel, CenterPoint, Minnesota Power, Otter Tail Power. We make critical decisions to reduce costs to customers in other proceedings as well, such as the decision in 2024 to reduce the forecasted cost of Xcel Energy's Community Solar Garden program by about $687 million over the next several years. Another is the commission's decision in the elite acquisition docket to save Minnesota Power customers approximately $200 million over the next few years. Some of the consumer benefits driven in that docket included $50 million in customer bill credits, $10 million in home weatherization benefits. The commission adopted a Department of Commerce recommendation to have elite set aside $50 million to reduce the cost of the clean energy transition for that utility. $3.5 million in residential customer arrearage forgiveness, and a number of other things. And none of these costs will be passed on to Minnesota Power ratepayers. They'll all be borne by the partners that will now own elite. I guess coming back to, I know a number of those dockets were controversial, and this goes back to what I was saying. You may not appreciate, you may not like the decision, you may not agree with the decision, but what went into the decision, you can rest on the integrity of the decision and how it relates to the docket that was in front of the commissioners and the statutes that we were applying. So those were examples of affordability in action. Here's a couple of affordability in outcome. You saw this slide in the Department of Commerce presentation the other day. A recent study from DOE's Lawrence Berkeley lab shows that Minnesota residential electric rates have declined about 1.5% relative to inflation between 2019 and 2024. Go ahead. And another preliminary information from the DOE's Energy Information Agency shows that Minnesota's residential electric bills are about the 5th lowest in the country and lower than all of our neighboring states. We were 8th lowest in 2024, so this is a consistent metric for the state. Senator Dibble and Senator Rarick, if you wouldn't mind, just to point out that the reason that we do so well in this metric, our rates are a little bit higher than some folks in our surrounding states, but our consumption levels are lower, primarily due to the energy efficiency work that's been done in Minnesota for decades. And that shows up here. This is, bills are rates times consumption equals the cost that ratepayers pay. So this shows a value of that energy efficiency work that you've pioneered, Senator Rarick. I just wanted to take a moment to point that out.
Mr. Chair,
Senator Dibble.
I didn't
after
get it
that
quite right, and then-
Shameless plug.
then Senator Rarick, I didn't get it quite right, and Senator Rarick had to come do a bunch of improvements and clean up for me.
It's noted. Senator Gruenhagen.
I got a quick question, if I could.
Sure.
The last Energy Committee we had, it showed that our transmission costs were growing exponentially. So does this figure, an estimated average bill, include the estimated increase in transmission cost?
Mr. Bull.
Mr. Chair, Senator Gruenhagen, it does to the extent those costs are already in rates. So the forward-looking, the new transmission lines are not yet captured in this cost.
The other thing, Mr. Chair, one real quick. I live out in the country and I have a co-op, built a house out there in 1983. And I mean, my rates the last few years, and again, I know, when I first built a house, my electricity rates were under $100 a month. That was my goal. Well, I've added a few things. So I could see if it went to $200 a month, okay? Probably $250 even, I'd be okay. My last bill in January was $667. In 1983, my neighbor was a dairy farmer, and I asked him one day, "What's your electricity charge?" He said over $700 a month. I thought I could never pay that.
Yeah.
I'm almost paying that now. So, I mean, you can share this information, but I'm dealing with reality of what people, I own an insurance agency, and I got about 400 seniors on Medicare supplements, and they are deciding whether to pay the electric bill or their prescriptions, okay? That's where they're at. So to come along and say that the rates are going down is hard for me to swallow.
Mr. Chair, Senator Gruenhagen, I appreciate that, and the next slide reflects that concern that we're seeing. So, but despite the fact that what we're seeing is that our rates are low, our bills are low relative to the rest of the country and our surrounding states, households are still hurting. People are still, their past due accounts are growing. You can see from this slide, disconnections are growing over the past few years and reflecting the difficulty that many customers have with paying for that service. So I fully understand where you're coming from on that.
Mr. Bull, one of the things we had in the last committee hearing, where Senator Gruenhagen and I have lived, for whatever reason, the impact of new rates are much higher than the rest of the state combined. So we're trying to deal with the state, and just to cover for us a little bit, Senator Gruenhagen, we can talk about that offline a little bit, but for Sibley County in particular, it's the darkest color, the biggest rate increase in the entire state. So, Mr. Bull.
Thank you. So we see this happening, and I oversee our consumer affairs office, and I end up tearing up whenever I talk about these folks. These are people, and I'm going to try not to do it here. These are people that are responding to your constituents' calls when they're having one of their worst days of their lives. They're about to get disconnection. They can't pay their bills. And these folks work with those customers and the utility to try to find appropriate resolution to allow them to stay on the system, allow them to make a minimum amount of payment that allows them to continue to get service. It's a real problem, and I fully appreciate what you're coming from, Senator Gruenhagen.
Senator Gruenhagen.
Thanks for that response. Yeah, last session, we had that 36% of Minnesotans can't are struggling to pay their electric bill. I mean, that's 14% away from 50%, okay? And so, I mean, we're going the wrong direction, is my opinion. And it's hard for me to swallow that the Green New Deal or scam, whatever you want to call it, is not causing a lot of these problems. And it could cause even more, as I think it was $7 billion we're going to lose in the future from the federal government in terms of subsidies, which you know how that's going to go. Once those subsidies disappear, the rates are going to skyrocket. And for our businesses, our seniors, and our people struggling to pay the bills right now. So I think we're going the wrong direction. And one last comment, you know, I have never believed in the Green New Scam, all right? Never. You probably know that.
I do know that, Senator.
You don't think they're raising my electricity rates in Sibley County just because I don't believe in the Green New Scam, do you? No, you don't have to answer that.
Thanks, Senator Gruenhagen.
Go ahead.
I think they probably are raising your rates for that reason, actually. Mr. Bull.
So to partially to address the concern, we're doing what we can at the commission. We have strict regulation of utility costs, as we've discussed, oversight over utility bill assistance program like the Excel Power On program, Minnesota Power's CARE program, CenterPoint's gas affordability program, coordination with the Department of Commerce and other state federal partners for home weatherization and bill paying assistance. Yes, thank you. And at this time of focus on affordability, we're increasingly concerned about what's referred to as interim rates. For the rate-regulated utilities, the Minnesota interim rate statute allows rate-regulated utilities to increase rates according to a formula in statute within 60 days of filing a rate case without analysis by the parties or approval by the commission. And as you can see here, the amount of increase can be substantial, 14%, 10%, a little over 11%. So it can be significant increase without that sort of analytic background. The delta between the interim rate amount and the final rate amount, when the commission does approve rates, is then refunded to ratepayers. So it constitutes a low interest loan from ratepayers to the utility during the pendency of the case. So ultimately, it could end up as a wash to ratepayers, but it's that initial being able to increase rates right away without any sort of action by any regulator is concerning. The Department of Commerce will have legislation on this to address this situation, and we're working with them and others on that. And now I'll hand it back to Sasha to talk about our implementation of the energy infrastructure permitting reform that you passed in 2024.
Thank you, Mr. Bull. Ms. Bergman.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Senators. As just a quick reminder, in 2024, as Mr. Bull said, the legislature passed the Minnesota Energy Infrastructure Permitting Act. The law took effect on July 1st of 2025, and we have been implementing that since that point in time, and of course, preparing for that in advance. So the law made several statutory changes in order to improve permitting efficiency, as well as to meet timelines while preserving robust public input and environmental review. So we now categorize projects into standard review or major review. Standard review covers wind, solar, storage, and smaller scale high voltage transmission lines. Major review is mandatory for larger projects such as non-renewable facilities of 80 megawatts or greater and high voltage transmission lines of more than 300 kilovolts that exceed 30 miles or require more than 20% of new right-of-way. To enhance collaboration, the Act transferred environmental review staff over from the Department of Commerce to the Public Utilities Commission. And now under the new law, prospective applicants must coordinate early with state agencies, with local governments and tribal governments, and they must also submit a draft application for the commission staff to review before they file it. And lastly, applicants are the ones now that conduct the initial environmental review. Commission staff will then review the assessment to determine if it addresses all the issues that it is supposed to, and if it falls short, staff will issue a formal addendum to correct it. Just two more slides on this topic. So this slide in front of you sort of demonstrates or illustrates the major milestones for the standard review process, so not touching on major review here. Statute mandates that a commission decision must be made within 6 months for standard review from the determination of application completeness. And so in practice, this gives the commission roughly a 180-day window, although we may resolve simpler projects at an even faster rate. Under the old statutes, similar alternative reviews at times could stretch beyond a year. So where are we today with this new law? We've received 4 now total project applications under the new statute 216I. We've received our first one under the new statute in early November, and then the commission determined that the application was complete on November 18th. So that docket number is there before you on the slide. And for this project, the final public comment period closed last week, and we expect that the administrative law judge will issue a report by March 5th. And then we anticipate a commission decision will follow at some point after the ALJ's report comes out, and we anticipate meeting or most likely exceeding the statutory deadline for this first project that's been filed. As I mentioned, to date, we've received 4 applications under the new law. All 4 of them are under standard review. We've not yet received a major review application. And our goal remains to have a right-sized process for each project, leveraging efficiencies where we can, but ensuring public input is retained and that the environment remains protected. So we look forward to continuing to keep this committee updated as we continue to implement that new law. And with that, back to Mr. Bull.
Mr. Bull.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I wanted to talk a little bit about data center tariffs, the legislation that you passed last year, nation-leading legislation, and I mean nation-leading that other states are now following your lead on this, requires the commission to define a very large customer class. That's what the legislation calls data centers to a large extent, for each public utility in the state, and to ensure that all costs associated with serving that customer class will be paid by that customer class and not charged by any other customers. We have a docket ongoing for XL Energy. Minnesota Power just filed theirs, and Otter Tail will be filed in the next couple of weeks. And I should point out, these are just the frameworks for how costs will be allocated between data center customers and non-data center customers. The actual terms and conditions of service between a utility and a data center will be dealt with in separate subsequent filings that we call electric service agreements. We don't currently have any electric service agreements pending, but with the announcement yesterday of the Pine Island Data Center, we expect to see one in the next few weeks. Next, I want to talk with you about a new position in our Consumer Affairs Office that was created in 2024, tasked with assisting applicants seeking to interconnect small solar projects to utility distribution systems. The person in this position, a woman named Erin Speltz, helps mediate consumer issues with the investor-owned utilities, handling issues like interconnection disputes, reviewing utility policies to clarify and avoid disputes with regard to interconnection, small solar, and convening stakeholder groups to improve understanding and communication of interconnection processes. This position is funded by a surcharge on each interconnection application that's filed with the utility. And something to note that the 2024 legislation limited the commission to 1 person for this role, Erin, and she handled 149 cases last year. I'm going to sort of zip through a number of other updates for you. I don't know that we're all that constrained for time. but I'll take the time you'd like me to go through some of these. Legislation you passed in 2024 required us to convene stakeholders for a thermal energy network deployment group. Thermal energy networks are efficient but relatively expensive systems that provide space heating, cooling, and water heating to multiple buildings through a shared thermal loop. The charge to the work group was to examine the potential regulatory opportunities for regulated natural gas utilities to deploy thermal energy networks and to identify barriers to that deployment. We've provided those stakeholder recommendations to you in a report mid-December of last year. Another item is legislation directing electric utilities to evaluate the cost and feasibility of installing grid-enhancing technologies on their transmission systems to alleviate congestion. Grid-enhancing technologies, or GETs, are hardware or software technologies that allow for expanded capacity and flexibility of existing transmission network without significant investment in new infrastructure. I should note that our electric utilities had already been planning for and deploying GETS technologies, but the 2024 legislation really stepped that up, requiring all the electric utilities that own significant transmission to incorporate and evaluate GETS projects in the biennial transmission plan that they filed with the Commission last November, and will take up this GETS portion of that plan in late spring, and the utilities will continue to evaluate GETS projects in biennial transmission plans going forward. Legislation also enacted in 2024 required the Commission to develop statewide generic standards governing the sharing of costs of planning and upgrading congested or constrained locations on the utility distribution systems in order to allow for the interconnection of distributed energy projects like solar. One of these one of these dockets was decided in September of 2025. The other one will be decided tomorrow, actually. We expect to see then some easing of the congestion that we've seen especially on the XL system going forward. That's good news. Another provision I wanted to highlight this afternoon was legislation to provide additional protections to renters who receive utility bills through a landlord or third-party rebilling company. The law essentially now provides the same protections that the renter would have had if he or she were billed directly by the utility. Among other things, the law ensures these tenants are protected from utility shutoff during cold weather rule period, and provides remedies for tenants who receive inaccurate bills, and authorizes the Commission's Consumer Affairs Office, who I just bragged about, to respond to and help resolve these tenant complaints. And finally, I wanted to highlight two other major pieces of legislation that were enacted in previous years. The legislature enacted the Natural Gas Innovation Act in 2021 in the wake of Winter Storm Uri to allow natural gas utilities to explore and demonstrate innovative ways to meet the needs of their customers through the use of biofuels like renewable natural gas and hydrogen, thermal energy networks, as I've just discussed, electrification, enhanced energy efficiency, and other means. CenterPoint's initial NGIA plan was approved by the Commission in July of 2024. XL's first plan was approved by the Commission in February of 2025. It should be noted the statute provides that these plans are voluntary, so the utilities are bringing these plans forward as they see benefit to them and their systems and their customers, but are subject to annual review by the Commission. And then finally, I wanted to highlight the Commission's work to implement the carbon-free standard that was enacted in 2023. That legislation directed the Commission to issue orders necessary for implementing the carbon-free standard. Since that bill passed, the Commission has been taking comments from utilities and stakeholders and issuing guidance as directed by the legislation on a series of topics of implementation issues. And as can be seen on this slide, the Commission has issued several rounds of guidance under this law and expect to complete this guidance process by mid-year of this year. You know, throughout these CFS orders, the Commission has been working hard to identify and issue practical least cost guidance consistent with the statute in order to ensure successful implementation of the carbon-free standard at the lowest cost that we can. And last slide, Mr. Chair. There are a number of ways that you can follow along with what the Commission is doing. We have a monthly newsletter that provides a host of information. We have posted our PUC calendar is available, so you know what the upcoming meetings are. You can follow us on social media. If you have, this is maybe an offer for constituent service, if you get calls about constituents having difficulty with their utility bills, have them call our Consumer Affairs Office. Those folks, as I've mentioned, are heroes, and they'll do great work for you. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Ms. Bergman. Thank you, Mr. Bill. I do think we have some member comments and questions. Senator Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to the testifiers, I wish that when you start talking about rate reductions, you would emphasize the fact that they're going up. It's only in reference to inflation because it's deceptive. But that aside for right now, over on back on page 16, you've got the average residential electric rates, and I saw different percentages of the raise, but do you have the actual percentages that electric rates have gone up, even from like, 2020 to 25?
So on this slide reflects bills. And my understanding is the increase from last year was about a percentage and a half. And I haven't done the math on previous years, but I could get that to you, Senator Green. I think that's important information to see the context for these. I have Senator Gruenhagen in the back of my head saying, liar's figure, what's the?
Senator Green.
Figures don't lie, but liars figure. There you go.
It's running as a tape in the back of my head, so I appreciate the request for additional context for these documents.
Senator Green, you still
And then
have
you'll
the
get me
floor.
sidetracked and I'll forget my next question. But, you mentioned the fact that you've got the current build-outs figured into your figures. Do you have any estimates on what's coming at us in the next couple of years as these 2040s, even though the reports I'm seeing say we're not making it, but do you have figures down somewhere that we can look at of your estimated cost year by year going forward?
Mr. Bull.
Mr. Chair, Senator Green, we don't. We are a reactive body, so we take in and process petitions and requests, and we haven't done that math yet. I think what I could tell you is a significant number of the amount of the incoming investment is in transmission. I think we see that, and part of that investment is a calculation that it strengthens the interregional grid and allows more interregional transfers of power from when power is needed in one area of the MISO region and there is a surplus over here. It can be sold and moved to that, and then customers in those areas of the state or the country or the region where the power is moved from generate revenues in the market, and the ratepayers are paid for that, for transfers. So what MISO is calculating is for those transmission investments that our utilities are making on all of our behalf will generate $2 to $3 of benefits for every dollar that a ratepayer needs to put in. That doesn't answer your question, but that's what pops into my head and try to respond.
Senator Green.
Yeah, and that's I like you, so I don't want to slam you too hard, but that's a lot of words, but it really doesn't say anything. And it's nice to say we'll move electricity around. The only problem with that is when everybody needs it at once, you're still out. And so we've disregarded and dismantled our reliable sources of energy and electricity, but that's for another day again. On page 16 again, you've got residential rates. Do you track the commercial rates and their increases?
Mr. Bull.
Mr. Chair, Senator Green, yes, we do. It's not as rosy, so I didn't put it on my slide, but for our commercial customers, we are below the national average for those, on average, for those customer class. Our industrial rates are slightly above. There's a statutory requirement that we try to get our rates on a customer class 5% below the national average. We're in that green zone for residential and commercial customers. We're slightly outside of that zone for the industrial customers. So it's who our experience for residential customers is currently the most economic. Commercial customers are in the next tier, and industrial customers probably have the highest impact.
Just one more comment, Mr. Chair. And that's interesting, but it too is a little bit deceptive when you're looking at the figures, because most commercial and industrial, especially industrial, when their prices go up, the cost of everything we do goes up. So that also impacts our families, and always it impacts the people that can afford at least the most. And then on those, also on those commercial rates, keeping them within 5% lower could actually be a detriment if you're raising them, or allowing them to raise just to reach that 5%. So do you take that into account? And that's all I need to say.
Mr. Bull.
Mr. Chair, we don't set rates to that target. We set rates according to the costs that the utilities and others bring to us in rate cases. And then we look back to say, how are we doing with regard to that statutory target? But I think your point is a good one. It's also a good one with regard to this, that these are averages relative to the rest of the states. And if all of our costs are going up, then we stay in line. You know, it's not getting more affordable, I guess is my point. And I think that's your point as well.
Good, Senator Green? All right, thank you, Senator Green. Thanks, Mr. Bull. We're going to go first to Senator Gruenhagen, then we're going to go to Senator McEwen. Senator Gruenhagen.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, just an observation and then a question. You know, when I look at the electricity costs and how many people can't afford it anymore, and then we come up with a program of government subsidies that you have to jump through the hoops to get. And I worked with some people on that, and it takes several months to get the subsidy when the electricity bill's due. So, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of Obamacare. First, we drive the price of health care through the roof, and then we come along with government subsidies to try to bring the price down. So if you like your health insurance premiums, you're going to love your electricity rates. I mean, you lose that $7 billion of federal subsidy, and rates keep going up. I mean, this is a disaster waiting to happen, okay, in my opinion. And you can play this video back to me in a few years to see if it's true. Anyway, the question is this. I really have a lot of concern about co-ops reaching this 2040. We had testimony last session that they aren't going to be able to do it. So what's the solution? Well, the solution that was put forward, well, they're going to have to buy carbon credits. And XL Energy supports that at the time. I know we switched lobbyists, but the one I talked to said, yeah, we support it. I said, well, why do you support it? I said to the XL Energy lobbyists. Well, because we have excess carbon credits, which we're going to sell to the co-ops because they can't meet the 100% 2040. So they're going to make millions of dollars, and the co-ops are going to have to pay this money, and then they're going to jack their electricity rates up in order to pay these worthless pieces of paper of carbon credits. I mean, this is you know, ignorance can be fixed, stupid's forever, in my opinion. But, you know, where are we at as far as this ridiculous nonsense of carbon credits? I mean, are these coming down the pipeline where these co-ops have to still meet this irrational 100% scam that's coming down the pipeline? And are they going to have to buy these carbon credits? Is that still in the pipeline, if you're familiar with that?
Thanks, Senator Gruenhagen. Mr. Bull or Ms. Bergman, who wants to take that?
Wow, I can take that. Mr. Chair, Senator Gruenhagen, I'm also a co-op member owner of a Steel Waseca member co-op down outside Denison, and they're a GRE, served by GRE. The 2040 law allows for as you say, that the utility should try to acquire or build a carbon-free resource, and then to the extent that it can't, it's allowed under that legislation that you've enacted to use carbon credits for additional compliance. I guess another layer of opportunity is to manage this situation. The legislation also allowed off-ramps. So if a utility is having a difficult time meeting the 2040 law, either because of cost or transmission reliability issues, it can come to the commission, and the commission can offer them an off-ramp for some period of time so that they don't have to incur costs that are uneconomic.
Senator Gruenhagen.
Well, thank you. Thanks for answering somewhat that question. So, Ms. Chair, yeah, just one other observation. See, from my standpoint, when I look at that 2040 bill, which should be repealed 100% because it's based on a scam, and I call it a number of other things, but what's going to happen, they're going to ultimately, because they can't reach the 100%, they're ultimately going to have to buy these carbon worthless credits. And that's going to cost the co-ops millions of dollars, and a few people are going to get rich, and the rest are going to get screwed, I guess. And the point is, I can see these local co-ops, which are just local people on their board, they're going to get so much criticism over passing these costs on to their ratepayers that they're going to say, we're not doing this anymore. So then it's going to be just like our hospitals, just like everything else, it's going to be consolidated into these big conglomerates that are going to run the whole system. That's what's going to happen. That's my prediction. Because these little co-ops, the people sitting on them, at a certain point are going to say, we're not taking this anymore. We can't control our rates. We're being forced to jack the rates up, and all we're doing is getting the H criticized out of us, and the whole thing is worthless. So, Mr. Chair, I hope we can pass some legislation to undo this mess before we suffer the consequences of the loss of the federal subsidies and the fact that the whole thing is based on an anti-science scam. Thank you.
Thanks, Senator Gruenhagen. We're going to go to Senator McEwen right after I give my own remarks. First of all, we're a member of the G20. That's the planet. 19 of those countries support this type of legislation. One country, the United States, pulled out. So one of the things Homer Simpson said is, everybody is stupid but me. And I just want to caution the committee members that we're citizens on this planet. We want to protect it. And I'd be a little nervous about the U.S. saying everyone's wrong but us. Second, the off-ramps were a key part of why MREA said that they would move to neutral on the 100% bill. I'm a member of a rural co-op too, Senator Gruenhagen, just south of you. And those rural co-ops said, if you provide us a reasonable off-ramp, we'll go from opposing the 100% by 2040 bill to neutral. We put in the off-ramps, and that showed some faith in the Public Utilities Commission, which said if a rural co-op cannot afford it and they can demonstrate that either cost or reliability is not achievable by 2040, they can go to the PUC and say, we can't make it, and the PUC has the ability to do it. The carbon credits, I'm actually with you, Senator Gruenhagen. I'm a little less certain that that'll work to the benefit of the small rural co-ops if we get to that point. And you have my pledge to keep looking at that. But I think it's important for us to ask, are we neighbors on this planet that are going to allow for a reasonable conversation about climate change? I think it's costing us billions every year. It's okay if we disagree. Looking forward to some bipartisan discussion there. I see you put your finger back up, and here's Senator McEwen ready to go to her term. Senator Gruenhagen.
Well, thanks. It's good to have a rebuttal and a conversation about this. But I'll just remind you that Albert Einstein was right and all the scientists were wrong. Louis Pasteur with the germ theory of disease was right, and all the rest of the doctors were wrong. Dr. Semmelweis, who said we're infecting women and dying when they're having birth because we're not sterilizing our equipment, was right, and all the doctors were wrong. So just because we pulled out doesn't mean we're wrong. We could be right, and the rest of them are all wrong.
Senator, I'll give you that one, and I promise you, if either Einstein or Pasteur want to testify to this committee, we will put them on the table right away. Thank you, Senator Gruenhagen. We need some opposing viewpoints. I'm going to go to Senator McEwen. Senator McEwen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you for coming to the committee and for this presentation today. I have some questions first about the future of gas docket. I'm wondering if there are any updates on that docket that also came out of 2021 Natural Gas Innovation Act legislation in addition to the NGIA plans.
Thanks, Senator McEwen. Ms. Bergman or Mr. Bull, either one?
Mr. Chair, Senator McEwen, you're right that that 2021 law and NGAA directed the commission to open up a docket to talk about the future of gas and where we might go with that. So there have been a number, like we've initiated a gas utility resource planning process for working through, the idea would be to take the learnings that we get through innovation plans, innovation pilots through the NGIA plans that have been approved and see what can be brought to scale and brought into a gas utility resource plan that could also be ways to serve their customer needs besides always using the fossil gas. So that's one outcome of that docket. We've had a series of what we call planning meetings. These are informational sessions for the commission to learn about aspects of this problem that they can then later use when they're making decisions in dockets that are before the commission. One of the, I think, promising planning meetings that we had was a discussion about how to use heat pumps, electric heat pumps, in a dual fuel configuration with natural gas furnaces, so that, and is there a way to optimize the way those two systems can work together, either optimized to save money or optimized to reduce the methane emissions from that system. We had a great session on that, and an inviting a pilot project from one of the gas utilities to sort of prove that out, that could be beneficial for their customers. We have a docket that's sort of pending that hasn't been scheduled for decision on what's called the line extension policies that all the gas utilities have. These are if I can briefly describe line extension, is that as the utilities build out their systems to new customers, the line extension policy allows some portion of that to be shared out with all the customers of the utility, so that that last segment, that there's some benefit, to reflect some benefit to all the customers to have more people on the system to share out the cost, the infrastructure, and the cost of running that network of gas utilities. So that docket is pending.
Thank you, Mr. Bull. Senator McEwen.
Thank you. Thanks for that. And just as sort of a follow-up, you were alluding to some of this already, but are there policy and regulatory changes right now in the immediate that are needed in this natural gas system to reach the state's climate goals? And as I said, you were alluding to some of that already in what you were saying, but are there any other policy or regulatory changes that you think are needed?
Mr. Bull.
Mr. Chair, Senator McEwen, I think it would be interesting. I would like to, we've had that, what I call the Thermal Energy Network Deployment Work Group, which is a terrible name for, but that was the statutory name. And we had a number of stakeholders in that group. The recommendations that came out of it weren't the commission's recommendations; it was the stakeholders' recommendations. That conversation amongst those stakeholders need to continue, but I think there's promise And so you might look at the recommendations out of that.
Senator McEwen.
Okay, we'll stay tuned on that one. Thanks for that. I did just want to make some comment. I would be remiss if I didn't, I think, as the state senator representing the community of Duluth. As you are well aware, our community has been involved in giving feedback and monitoring and seeing this sale of our power utility, Minnesota Power, to the investment firm, the Canadian Pension Fund, and then Global Infrastructure Partners, which is a subsidiary of the BlackRock Corporation. And as part of that sale, there was a coalition of, I think, 15 environmental organizations, as well as myself, my counterpart, Representative Leish Kozlowski, a number of other community leaders who voiced real concerns about that sale when it was pending and proposed. And we also had a very comprehensive decision from an administrative law judge who had reviewed the proposed sale, and it was very strongly a statement recommending against approving the sale and finding that the petitioners had not shown that the sale was in the public interest. And after, I think also almost 500 public comments were submitted to the PUC in opposition to the sale, and a lot of fear and a lot of concern by members of my community that this sale was being sort of rammed through in ways that were not very transparent around what the real reason might be for that sale, and feeling that the PUC wasn't really getting to the heart of what those concerns are. Previously, Minnesota Power was a publicly traded corporation, so at least we had shareholders we could go to, we had a board we could go to, we had local leaders in our own community in Northeast Minnesota who, if we had grievances or issues with our own power company, we could go to them and ask for help or changes. But now our power company is owned by this behemoth organization. I just looked up BlackRock. It looks like they did over $5 billion, or wait, was it 5 or 500? I don't remember. I just had it. Billions and billions in profit just last year. They are a behemoth global investment company, and I think they control trillions of dollars of assets around the world. They're more powerful than probably most nation states in the world. And so our little Minnesota Power, on the scale of what they're considering for their maximization of their profit for their shareholders worldwide, we're really concerned about what the future holds for us in terms of both our rates, in terms of our plans to transition to clean energy in accordance with the state's goals. We're just very worried. We have no control anymore. We have no real sense of control, and we're going to be really leaning on the PUC, which has just ignored, or seemingly almost too many people ignored, almost 500 comments that had been submitted in opposition to this, and huge organizing efforts on the part of all of these environmental groups that also in turn represent hundreds, thousands of people in our region and in the state of Minnesota. And then I'm just going to add a little bit more, and I don't want to go on too long with this, but as many people know, it came to light in September because of a public information request that had been submitted to the city of Hermantown, just outside of Duluth, that in fact a hyperscale data center is being planned and was being promoted behind the scenes for Hermantown. That hyperscale data center would draw on our systems, all of our infrastructure systems, and draw power, presumably from Minnesota Power. And as part of the information request that was received, the public found out that over the last year, those developers that were proposing that data center had had induced some public officials in our county of St. Louis to sign non-disclosure agreements. So we had public officials in our region who knew about this proposal but had signed agreements not to talk about it with the public. A hugely impactful potential development. So we found out in September that this had happened, that this was going on, and as you know, as a result, hundreds of people came out to the Hermantown City Council. There's been organizing. There's signs all over our region against the data center. But as part of that, we found out that a number of executives in Minnesota Power were part of that planning for that data center. And when they made application for the sale to the PUC, that data center was not part of it. In fact, they kind of drew people's attention away from it. And I know the PUC just denied a petition, no, a renewed petition to go back and take a look and see, did we have all the information that we needed when we approved this sale, because that data center was never brought up. And it's hugely impactful. And that was denied by the PUC to review that. So you'll understand that where I am sitting today, I am representing a community that feels enormously, I don't think betrayed is too strong of a word. I think that is how many, many people feel. That there are a number of people who made a lot of money on this sale. And I know that the PUC did take some steps, at least in the short term, to try to protect, and we see the affordability and action slide, and I see that, we're aware of some of that, and we're glad some of that is in place. But we're really concerned that that's just very short term. And as we're going into the future, this is a fundamental change in our system. And I'm worried about the people that work for Minnesota Power. These are my neighbors. I have family that's worked for Minnesota Power. I'm worried about the service itself, the reliability, and I'm worried about costs for all of my community as we go forward. And so I just want to make the record of this, that my community is really upset about that decision, really upset that the entire PUC voted against the decision of the recommendation of the ALJ and against so many people in our community. And I know that many people that work for the PUC are very deliberative, and I appreciate all of the work that you do, and I don't want to take away from any of that. But I do just want to appeal to you to please, we have a lot of people that are really worried about the future of what this means for us when we have global equity firms coming in and buying up our utilities. So that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator McEwen. I think you have raised an issue of the non-disclosure agreements, which is a legitimate one, relates to local government. And I share your questions about, hey, how's the best way to do it? I'm an advocate for economic development myself. On that note, Senators, I did put in your packets, but did not post the article today on the new data center in Pine Island. It contains an agreement that was announced and a new data center planned in one of the Minnesota communities. And so in there, I hope you'll see not only some reflection of the data center legislation that was passed last, but they did not include one thing that I hope every member of the Energy Committee is glad to see, which is the calculation of the weatherization money under the bill is $5 million, larger than the size of the program in existence. So Senator McEwen, we negotiate these stuff out and hopefully find a middle ground which is respectful of all Minnesotans. One of the things that's in this article, which members can look at, is that the low-income weatherization money was a way to get to yes on the data center legislation, and hopefully we can agree low-income weatherization is one virtue of the deal to be determined. And I didn't post it because I don't think we post articles. I mean, you can find that online, but there it is. With that, any other comments? Senator Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm not going to necessarily drag this out to a big data center discussion. But I need this committee to understand one thing very clearly from this situation that's been cited here and this article that we've had. Let me tell you about a community that came trying to do it right. It was my district of Becker, and they came saying, here's the project, here's what we need, here's a small, minor regulatory reform piece that needs to be adjusted to help this go through. And members on this committee and members in my body absolutely lambasted my community with accusations that were so far afield from the truth and from reality that guess what? If this is the way folks are going to be treated, you're going to chase the whole industry to non-disclosure agreements. And none of us on that panel wants that to happen, because my project is still sitting on ice. We have the double whammy now of the land has been sold, that's not being developed, and the land is now owned, then can't be developed by anyone else. And outrageous behavior by members on this committee and in this body were directly responsible to contribute to that. So we can come here and talk about, oh, there's one project and, you know, all this that's being concerned and all of that. Well, guess what? They look around and see how other communities are getting treated. You want to know why they're wanting to come and figure some preliminary things out under non-disclosure agreements? Because there was some absolutely outrageous treatment for communities like mine that are looking at a fiscal cliff they're going to fall off of because of the retirements of Churco. And time after time after time, they come with a solution that has a lot of, I won't say necessarily universal community support, because I know most communities have very diverse views all over, but a lot of community support that they come here, and folks that have no connection to my community or bureaucrats that sit in air-conditioned offices here in St. Paul say, we know better than you do in your local community. And I am not going to continue to stand for that any longer. It's unfortunately why I went from authoring the data center bill to voting against the final data center bill, because of how far off the rails it went. And I know some pieces in there were good things that needed to be had, but it fell woefully short of goals that we needed to accomplish at the state, which I will be working to see if we can rectify again this session. But let's be very clear. Members in this body are directly contributing and will push this entire industry to NDAs. If not, I think a few in this body want to push them out of the state altogether. And I'm not going to allow that to continue I'm not going to idly stand by especially for communities that are in my district, for that kind of treatment.
Thank you, Senator Matthews. What I remember of the testimony is the school district said that the tax base was about 40% of the school's budget in Becker, and I thought that was some very resonant testimony. Members, thank you for a spirited discussion. For our friends from the Public Utilities Commission, you got attacked from both the Democrats and Republicans. That's a badge of honor in this committee. And I want to highlight the certificate of need issue, which I thought was a realistic compromise on the backup generation in Becker. And I did think that we failed the community of Becker by not making that part of the deal. And I'm not going to get into the politics of it, but just to say, we need economic development in this state if we're going to pay for education, if we're going to pay for health care. And I thought the bill that was passed was a worthy compromise as far as it went. Happy to work with you, Senator Matthews, further. Last question then for Ms. Bergman and Mr. Bull, since you mentioned it. What other states are patterning data center legislation after Minnesota? Do you have some names you can toss on the record before we gavel out of here?
Sure, Mr. Chair. The names right off the top of my head, I understand Illinois is working on this. Indiana is working on similar legislation. It's becoming a component of how data centers are bringing their projects forward, saying we'll pay for all of our costs, even if they're not required to under the state law. So it's setting it's the legislation that you passed last session. It does set a standard that everyone else seems to follow.
Thank you, Mr. Bull. And for members who aren't following this, I live in the city of North Mankato where a data center was pulled out by Oppidan in the last year. And those taxpayers in North Mankato are well aware of the economic impact. But I will acknowledge, we have community members who sound more like Senator McEwen with those concerns. Democracy at its finest. On Monday, we're going to have the confirmation hearing of Commissioner Joe Sullivan. It's this committee's responsibility to make a recommendation to the Senate as a whole. Hope members will be able to attend for that. Thank you, everybody, for the time and participation and a little bit of passion. That's what makes us go. Senator Gruenhagen, with that, we are adjourned.